If you've watched this channel for any length of time, there's two things you may already be familiar with, and that is you've been in this leatherworking shop before. And you've been in my shop watching me blacksmith wearing an apron like this, only black. Now Steve's the guy, of all my friends, he's the one that works leather perfectly. You're going to get a chance to see how this guy makes aprons just like this right here in this shop.
Spent quite a bit of time developing this pattern and sourcing just exactly the right materials to make a blacksmith apron that's going to be durable and also wearable. Rivets here. I Ken Jordan Mall. Every few years I replace this oak punch block. Use it for a while and then I turn it over. A couple years later I replace it again. God's been kind to me, and there's a lot of young people who work in the saddle shop with me, which is great, but they also tend to use up my tools. One key to doing good leather work is figuring out how to make materials of different strengths and flexibilities wear the same, where the harder material doesn't just wear out the softer one. Put my nippers down flush, rock them up somewhat. I like to leave the rivets on these aprons just a little bit proud, and the reason is looks cool. When we're setting a burr rivet like this, you'll see that the shaft of the rivet is a little bit wider and then it tapers on the end. You slide a burr over and it slides down the tapered shaft until it meets the part of the shaft that's at full thickness. Then with the number 1 riveter, you'll drive it down to the desired depth and then cut it off. Now there's the friction of this smaller burr being driven over the larger shaft will hold it, but that's not enough. So once you've cut it off, you use the number 2 rivet setter to drive the burr down a little bit and also upset the end of the rivet. So this shaft of the rivet actually becomes the widest part of the rivet, and then you'll add a nice little dome on there by striking it again. When I'm doing saddlery, I'll crown this cap of the rivet with this domed riveting tool, and it gives it a nice curved look on the outside, but also as the leather wears over years and years of service, the sharp edge of the rivet will never get out, catch on your clothing, or scrape the livestock. These all brass cap rivets are not very robust. They won't corrode, and that's an advantage, but they're not tremendously strong, but they're exactly the right rivet to hold these two pieces of leather together. The stronger copper rivet is holding in that heavy clip D, and these brass rivets are holding together the two pieces of leather, or they will hold it together after I strike it with my Ken Jordan crowning tool. It'll have a nice decorative shape to it also. These are 5/16 rivets. They're a hassle to set when they are too long, and they don't grip well enough when they're too short. So it's nice to have a selection of rivets in different sizes, 1/4 inch, 5 and 7/16. The round area here, the hole that I punched out when I made that cut makes this less likely to tear. Inside corners in leather should always be round. This is a brown Herman oak latigo, and I selected this latigo for our aprons because it has a really good temper, and being a drum stuff leather and oil tanned leather, it's really durable. This is my draw gauge to make sure it's set for 5/8. This is a really old draw gauge. It's made by the C.S. Osborne Company. Fits nicely in the hand. I don't use the old Osborne blades. I use these replaceable blades by Hyde or Stanley. And I tell the apprentices to never use a dull blade. Do not hesitate to replace that blade. All right, now this part of the leather down here isn't good for anything. It's too soft, so I'm gonna cut our strap off. The strap cutter always goes with a sharp edge down. I'm gonna lay it out here on the table against this ruler and bevel our edge. This is my Barry King beveler, a number 4, but I'm not gonna be using a whole, I'm using it as if it was a number 2. I'm not taking a whole bite off there. Just knocking off the edge of this so it looks nice. It is important to bevel the back edge because this part will go against the person's leg if it's a leg strap, and besides that, it's just professional and nice to do all 4 edges. Sometimes people unfortunately get leather upside down and call it rough out, and it always seems a misfortune to me to get the leather upside down when the top side's so pretty. This is leg strap that I'm going to rivet on the inside of the leg of this apron. I like to use these solid brass trigger snaps with a swivel on them. Hold that apron close to the craftsman's leg, not too close, but it's nice to have the apron not flopping around. This is a Conway buckle. They are low profile and they're not heavy, and they're ideal for a situation like this where probably this won't be adjusted ever again once the individual craftsman has it set. Cool. Disadvantage to a Conway is they're difficult to adjust, but that's okay. This nice firm Latigo leg strap, 16 inches long, will get a nice round end. Aesthetically pleasing. We could make it square, but why make it square when we have this nice half round punch? And here's our belt. This is my hole marking jig, and you can see it's got a mark for where the Conway buckle should be. I'll measure it on here. Make sure that I get it the correct distance from the end. Four inches, and on 1 inch centers to 8 inches. So we'll measure up 4 inches. Punch them on 1 inch centers to 8 inches. And on this other end, we'll punch a 1/8 inch hole to rivet it in under the shield. We'll assemble our piece and be able to rivet it in. All of these in just the right place. I have seen these copper rivets worn entirely away on a saddle, on the rigging plate of a saddle. It's important to use a copper burr rivet that's actually long enough to do the job that you're trying to do. Even if you wind up cutting away a little of the material, it's worth doing. I always think of Ken when I'm riveting because he made this maul, and he's made me a lot of these mauls, and he's made them for my apprentices too, which is great. And he also made the rivet setter. He often comes in here and we sit and talk about things, and Ken's really good for me. He's a good friend for me. He has a degree in literature, and we have a lot of really interesting conversations. And it's true that sometimes they span a couple days, but he was reading Mere Christianity. He and his friends were reading that earlier this year, so we talk about whatever chapter they were on, and sometimes he smokes his pipe and the shop fills with the curling pipe smoke, and sometimes he'll pick up a tool of mine and look at it for a while and say, in his measured way, could this be better? And for the first year or two that he hung out in here, I was embarrassed to say yes, because he was going to make me a better one. But after a while, I figured out that that's what he wanted to do. So Ken's carried away a lot of my tools over the years and made me better ones. And this maul, stamped Jordan on top right here, this maul weighs in just a little over 2 pounds. But it's perfect. The first one he made me was not. And so he made it again. The head tapers, the plastic material is a little bit harder than on my previous maul, so it holds up better, but he cut these ridges in there. Ken was a good leather worker at one point in time, and his hand sewing is still quite good. He cut a straight line and everything, but he likes to work on that lathe. Yeah, here we go. I think this will do it. Nice, easy to access snap on the outside of the person's leg where never rub together. The trigger points out where you can get at it even if you have cold hands at the end of a big day working. I think it'll do, Scott. This apron is looking good. Got our hardware in place. The rivets are tidy. We have the X back in place and the maker mark on. All right, it's time to brand. Make sure that we are happy with our iron. Now we don't catch the cord on fire. 1, 2, 3. That's what we like to see. 1, 2, 3.
Perfection itself. So you guys have heard me say that I met Cy Swan about 20 years ago, roughly, when I got introduced to blacksmithing. And so it was probably 21 or 22 years ago that I met you for the first time at one of his Christmas parties or something.
Probably, or maybe in the forge.
Maybe in the forge, yeah. Which means he was not yet into his 30s. He was really a pup. But Cy bragged on him. He especially bragged on Steve's art sense and his ability to visualize and make beautiful things. And it didn't take me long to recognize that, and I think you're kind of getting a feel for that after looking around his shop and watching the care and the attention he brings to these aprons. By the way, these are the aprons that I have for sale. Check out our merch. They're beautiful. You can see now why they cost money. They are top-notch, which introduces a concept that is so important. And you're just going to have to take this, all right? You can take it. And that is that it is such a blessing to do business with and be engaged with people who you can count on to do the best darn job they can. Now, in this case, the best darn job he can do is essentially perfect. Essentially. But what a relaxation that is, to know that when you trust somebody to make something, that you can trust them. Now let me just point out what he just pointed out to me to drive the point home. So this is a cutout apron, right? I went through the whole selection process and had the pattern laid on there. That's a hot little iron. Don't burn the back of that, Wadsworth. Look at that, scorched it a little bit already, and you warned me. But this apron already had a lot of work put into it. And at the last second, he pointed out this morning, he identified that. You see that? Now, I don't know if the cow had a little bad luck that day or if that's happened in the tanning process.
No, you're right, Scott. That's a barbed wire scratch. You can see that she was kind of going and picked up a couple of points. It doesn't come through on the back side, but it doesn't belong with this. This and this don't go together.
So you see my point? Now, I don't know if I myself would have kicked that out of the production cycle, because that doesn't hurt anything except it does hurt something. And so, I mean, good luck finding the people and surrounding yourself with them that will pick up your slack and guarantee your outcomes. It's a blessing in our lives. And specifically, Steve, thank you. These things are beautiful.
I'm glad you're happy.
Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.